גפר עלינו חסדו, ואמת אדוני לעולם, הללויה, הללויה.
Shalom, shalom, and good to see you all. I'm happy to and privileged to be able to present you such wonderful information that was written by two amazing Messianic leaders, Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum and Messianic leader Jacques Gabizon here in Montreal. But this is a production of Ariel Ministries Canada. So welcome, welcome, and it's going to be an exciting study. We're going to look at things that are future for us and that we won't see, but except through the eyes of Daniel, who saw it despite the fact that it scared him to pieces. We are in chapter 7. We're going to finish the chapter. We did the first half last time when we saw these four beasts representing four kings or four kingdoms. And then we saw a beautiful vision of God the Father, spoken about as the Ancient of Days, and Yeshua as the Son, described as the Son of Man. And, you know, once a believer sees or experiences God, there's no beast on the planet that can scare you. So this vision of heaven really prepared Daniel and us for the revelation of the Antichrist, which is going to be a progressive revelation in the book of Daniel. And this is the first time we hear about it. And the rest of the chapter will give us the interpretation of these visions. So twice Daniel is going to ask more information from a couple of the angels who surround him in heaven because he wants to know more. So turn with me, please, to Daniel chapter 7, and we see in verse 15 the effect it has on Daniel. It says, "My spirit was grieved in the midst of my body." Now, this is a really cool term, in the midst of his body. It means it was his body, or his spirit was in the sheath, like, you know, you put a knife into a sheath in his body. So our soul in our body is like a sword in its sheath. So pretty cool. It says the visions of, and today I heard of someone who went to be with the Lord. So his spirit has now left his sheath, if you will, dear friend in Maine. And the visions of his head, it says, troubled him. And so he shimmied up to one of these angels and to one who stood by and said, "What's this all about?" And so in verse 16, we get the first of two explanations. It says, "He let me know the interpretation of things." And Daniel tells us it's just the summary. It's just the highlights, the main points. And verses 17 and 18, saying that those four beasts represent those four kings or kingdoms that arise out of the earth. And it is synonymous with the sea. And you go, wait a minute, earth, sea, Jackie? No, 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 these don't go together. Yes, they do. The sea, because it is Gentile, and, you know, from the sea comes the Gentiles, and earth, because it is human, as opposed to from heaven. So it's not the same kind of contrast you might think. And yes, it's further developed in Daniel, those four. We have Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and the imperialistic colonial thing that the Fourth Empire is. But then it speaks about the kingdom. And we're going to talk about two different terms, the saints, who are the saints, and what is this kingdom. So it says the saints of the Most High, that's El Elyon in Hebrew, shall receive the kingdom. And the saints are mentioned 7 times in Daniel, and it is always Israel. Now, maybe in my Thompson chain reference that I used to have decades ago, it might have said the church, but it's not possible. The church didn't exist yet. The church only began in Acts chapter 2. But the amillennial and post-millennial, you know, post-millennial, we're getting to a better and better place on the planet, so we get to the golden age. Well, take a look around. I don't think so. You know, the amills and the post-mills see the saints of the High One as Christians, and the kingdom is not a physical kingdom at all. It's only a spiritual kingdom. But let's look at one of the early places where we see the word kingdom, and it's in Exodus chapter 19. Verse 6, oh, 6 was repeated. It's not 66, it's actually 6. And you shall be to me a kingdom, God, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you shall speak to who? The church? No, the sons of Israel. Oh, we just got it corrected. Great. So, who is that kingdom? It is the Jewish people. That was what he said before. We all know what happened in Exodus 20. It's the Ten Commandments. So before he begins to give the 613 laws, he defines who is supposed to be taking care of this. And it says they shall possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. And so in my French session that I had on Saturday, somebody said, well, what is that forever? The word is olam in Hebrew. The word forever and ever and ever does not exist in Hebrew. It only means for a period, for instance, except if it speaks of the character of God. God is immutable. God doesn't change ever. So if it's speaking about God who's this way forever, it is forever and ever. But if it's not, then it could be a specific period of time, like when it says if a slave wants to stay with the master after his time of indentured period is over, that he would be taken to the doorpost and there would be a hole put in his ear lobe, and then he would serve his master forever. Olam. Is it forever? I mean, after he died and buried? And no, it's only for a period of time for his life. So remember that when you see that in Hebrew. And if you have a tool, like I use Blue Letter Bible, look it up and then know that. Now, Daniel says, that's not enough. I want to know more. So that's verses 19 to 22. Daniel is alarmed, distressed. We already saw that. Why did he want to know more? Was it for himself? Was it just out of curiosity? Because he would have probably just rather known more about the Ancient of Days vision. That's a nicer one. Let's stick with that. But probably because he was called to shepherd and teach the Israel, and so he needed to know more. So we go back to that fourth beast, verse 19. It's diverse from all of them, and this is the imperialistic empire, exceedingly terrible, teeth of iron, and new information, nails of brass. And it devoured, broke into pieces, and stamped what was left, the residue with its feet. Horrible. And we talk about horns, 10 horns, verse 20, the first part. And then we see a little horn. And the little horn came up after, and it caused 3 horns to fall. So there are 10 horns, and then an 11th one comes up, and it causes 3 to fall. And that horn had eyes, meaning intelligence. It had a mouth that spoke great boasts. It was proud, and its look was sturdier than the other 10, basically, its fellows. And that was, then the other 10. And it says the war, it made war against the saints, meaning the Jewish people, and it prevailed. Verse 21. So, once again, the saints are the remnant of Israel, the believers within Israel. And, God is concerned for them, of course. And if you notice that little horn and the fourth beast's main focus is on Israel. That's what Israel will be persecuted by that little horn. But verse 22, total elimination, which is the fulfillment of verses 9 to 14 that we saw last time, until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given to the saints of El Elyon, the Most High, on their behalf. Of course, God is causing this judgment because he is the possessor of heaven and earth, and the saints will possess that kingdom, and that's the results of the judgment. And it will be a physical kingdom, of course, the 1,000 years. Now, there's a more detailed interpretation to come in verses 23 to 27 and about that fourth beast. And we've already seen that there would be a united stage, that's Rome, and a fourth kingdom on the earth, and it's different from the kingdoms. And then we see a one world government stage. Now, this is before the Antichrist. It says, it shall devour the whole earth. Now, whole is the same word as the flood that covered the whole planet. So if you say it's only a piece of the planet, like Europe, doesn't work because it has to cover the whole world. And Rome did not conquer the whole world. People say, oh, that's Rome. No, it certainly didn't conquer the whole known world. And it didn't break it apart, shred it into pieces. It's never been fulfilled until now. And so out of that one world government, it'll break up into 10. 10. And those 10 kingdoms cover the whole planet. And it cannot be limited to Europe. And I want to bring you to two paragraphs in the commentary that Dr. Fruchtenbaum wrote. I put it on slides for you so you can read along with me at story time with Jackie. Verse 24a shows that the one world government stage will be followed by a 10 division stage. And as for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom shall 10 kings arise. In order to understand the chronology of the Fourth Empire, it is important to consider the phrase out of this kingdom. In the Aramaic, the term malku, or kingdom, is followed by the pronominal suffix ta, this. So in combination, malkuta refers to a very specific kingdom, meaning the kingdom mentioned in the previous verse. So what was described there represents the one world government stage of the fourth kingdom. So verse 24a shows that out of the one world government, 10 kingdoms will arise. And prior to the establishment of a global government, the 10 division stage cannot exist. Nevertheless, in recent decades, many prophecy teachers have tried to identify the 10 division stage first with the European Economic Community, the EEC, and then with the European Union. He says such attempts are futile. End of story, okay? Dr. Fruchtenbaum has that in his commentary. The European Union at the beginning was not 10 to begin with, and now it's more than 10. It just doesn't work. Now, we get to the Antichrist stage, verses 24b to 25 and 26. It talks about his rise. It is after the 10 division stage, and he's going to be different from the other 10 kings, and he will kill three, or put down, probably kill three of the kings. What will he do? Let's read verse 25. He will speak out against El Elyon, the Most High, and wear down the saints of the Highest One, and he will intend to make alterations, what? In times and in law. We'll look at that. And they will be given into his hand, for how long? For a time, times, and half a time. So, first, he speaks words against the Most High, and he wears out the saints. We're going to go back to that soon and talk about application for us. And he wants to change the times and the law. What are the times? The times are the Jewish festivals, the feasts of the Lord. King Jeroboam of the north in Israel tried to do that in 1 Kings. Actually, he succeeded, chapter 12. And the law, well, it's the law of Moses, obviously. And the saints, the Jews, will be given into his hand, meaning there will be a time of great persecution. And for how long? Time, times, and half a time. So how do you know that, Jackie? Well, there are tons of references. I put some on the screen for you. Just a few, actually. Daniel 9:27 talks about a covenant with the many for 1 week. I know it says week. Jackie, 1 week is not 7. But if you look in the Aramaic, it's for a group of 7. Like if I ask you to buy 12 eggs, I'll ask you to buy a dozen. So it's a 7-ish. It's a dozen. It's a 7 whatever. So in the middle of the 7-ish, half of 7 is 3.5. Daniel 12:7 is a time. It says a time, times, and half a time. And Revelation 11:2 as well as 13:5 both say 42 months. Again, 3.5 years. Revelation 11:3 and 12:6 are even more specific, 1,260 days if you didn't get the 42-month thing. And obviously, these are Hebrew months, 30 days. And Revelation 12:14, it says a time, times, and half a time. So it's very clear what we're talking about. And it is the second half of the tribulation, obviously. And these dates are going to be really vital information for the people who undergo the tribulation, because they're going to know exactly when it ends. We don't know when it begins, the exact date, except that it's the day that Israel signs the covenant with the Antichrist. That is the day it will begin. And from then they'll be able to count. And that'll be a comfort. It's not going to, it's like we look up and I say, it used to be every 3 or 4 months. Now it's every 3 or 4 minutes. Come, Lord Yeshua, come now. They will know when the end of it is. And that will be a great comfort. So that will help them keep their faith and keep hope, keep them alive. But we see this idea of wearing down the saints. It means to persecute, to oppress. The word to tax someone comes from that root. And there are two main strategies that the evil one will always use. The evil hasn't changed, in the way it works from the garden on. We are attacked at our weakest spot. And Mr. Gabizon says it's not so bad, because really that helps us work on our sanctification, because we then learn with God how to overcome that weakness. I'm going to say a sentence that I will repeat because I think it's really important. Temptation that is not resisted, so you give in, leads to compromise. And compromise leads to indulgence. And indulgence leads to defeat. I'm going to say that again. This is in our own walk. Temptation not resisted leads to compromise. Compromise to indulgence, and indulgence to defeat. What does Paul say about this in Romans 13? Make no provision for the flesh. Don't give Satan an inch or he'll take a mile. The next strategy is the one Daniel speaks about. He will wear out the saints, try to discourage us. If you are doing the work of the Lord, have you felt worn out and exhausted lately? That's the mark of the enemy. It's also a mark of our growth and progress, because the devil is not going to bother with attacking a sleeping believer. And so the Bible warns us, we see this in Hebrews 12, verse 3, lest we become weary and faint in our minds. Because your mind is where the real attacks come. But John adds something vital when we're faced by it, and he says in 1 John 4:4, he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. So we are victorious from the get-go, from the start. Let's keep that in mind. But we need to learn to read the signs of being worn down and attacked, and we need to rest sometimes. But it's too easy to get caught in the vision and not spend time with the one who gives us the vision. Now, there's an interesting illustration. Who is a saint? A little boy attended a church that had beautiful stained glass windows, and he was told the windows had pictures of Matthew and Mark and Luke and John and other saints. And so one day they asked him, well, what's a saint? He says, a saint is a person whom the light shines through. Isn't that great? That's a good definition of the saints. It's come a long ways from what the original New Testament meaning was, because some people, when they think of saints, they think of some statue somewhere, or somebody who's been dead a long time, who's been declared, some ecclesiastic relic. But one of the clearest definitions is a saint is a dead sinner, because you're not a sinner, you're a saint. You're made righteous. A saint is a dead sinner, revised and edited and fully saved, and through whom the light of God shines through. So let's look at the victory now. Verse 26, we see this judgment will come. They will take away the dominion of the Antichrist and consume it, destroy it till it's no more. Yay. And then comes Yippee, the kingdom of God, verse 27, the inheritance of the people of the saints of the Most High, kingdom, dominion, and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven. And its nature is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey God. And it's very different from amillennialism because, this kingdom is established after the Antichrist age, which hasn't appeared yet, right? So people who say the kingdom is right now, well, they forget there are 5 different kingdoms. And oh dear, you might ask me in the question period what those are, and I'll try to remind you of what is written in the Yeshua book, but there are 5 kingdoms. Well, I'll try. There's the kingdom of under David and Solomon. There is the kingdom, and that was a theocracy because God was really before David, before they asked for a king, God was in charge. And then there was a physical kingdom under David and Solomon. And so, first one, theocracy. Second one is under David and Solomon. And then we have the division soon after between Israel and Judah. We have the universal kingdom where we say God is over all, okay? And then we have the millennial kingdom, the 1,000 years when Jesus will be reigning here on the earth. And then we have the mystery kingdom, which started after, the 5th one, after Matthew chapter 5, which because the Jewish leadership rejected the messiahship of Jesus and claimed that he did miracles based on satanic power, that this new mystery kingdom started. So right away in chapter 13, we have all these parables, the kingdom parables that describe this new thing that grew, that was ungainly in its size, because a mustard seed is not supposed to grow big, but if it's giant size, big enough to have birds and all kinds of things in it, then it's gotten way too big. And that's because we have, Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox. It's everybody who calls themselves Christian, even Mormons call themselves Christians. So, it's this big thing. So that's the mystery kingdom that was not known of, meaning in the Old Testament, that is revealed to us in the New Testament. So those are the 5 kingdoms that exist, and you can get that in the Yeshua book. And we know that the Antichrist stage has not appeared yet. That's what Paul was encouraging the Thessalonians with in First and Second Thessalonians. It hasn't come yet. You haven't missed the rapture. And remember, the Messianic kingdom is not the same as that 4th kingdom. It's not happening at the same time as that 4th beast. Remember, that rock comes along and destroys the 10 toes and all that. So it follows the 4th Gentile empire. And that kingdom replaces the Gentile empire in the same place, which is the whole planet. And the Messianic kingdom can only be established after all the Gentile powers are destroyed. And it is established by Jesus, the Messiah himself. And people talk about today the kingdom being here, but now we're in a time when we are suffering and we're bearing the cross. The kingdom won't be like that at all. This kingdom is Jewish with a Jewish king. So the conclusion in verse 28 is Daniel says, here's the end of the matter. My thoughts much troubled me. My countenance was changed in me, but I kept it to myself, kept the matter in my heart. Now, you might ask, well, what is the one world government going to look like before that which the Antichrist will start in the middle of the tribulation? We don't know. We don't have information. President Trump and how many others are at Davos right now, starting the World Economic Forum thing. Is that it? We don't know. Is it the fact Dr. Fruchtenbaum says that once the invasion from the north happens, led by Russia and Iran, that not only, remember, will sulfur and horrible things fall on the soldiers who are attacking, but also on Russia in the north at the same time. So he says Russia will fall, and the east-west axis will be unbalanced after that, and the east will be weaker and the west will be stronger, and maybe that will be what will lead to the one world government. But it's all speculation. We simply do not know. it does appear that it will take place before the tribulation, and it will eventually break down in accordance with Daniel 2:43. That and lead to the 10 division stage that will cover the whole world and continue until the middle of the tribulation, or the time when the Antichrist puts down those three other kings. And it starts out the tribulation as being a religious rule, ecclesiastic Babylon, then becomes political. And that's in the middle of the tribulation when he says, I'm God now, worship me. And he sets up whatever, his image in the temple, the third temple. So, heavy subject. The persecution of Israel was probably Daniel's greatest fear. And that's why he asks twice about that fourth beast. Other prophets talk about the tribulation. Think of Jeremiah, who calls it the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it, from Jeremiah 30, verse 7. But he wants to know, how soon is it? Is it going to happen now? Is it near? And the answer comes, stay tuned, same time, same channel, in 2 weeks, in chapter 8. The answer is it's later. So he says, okay, that's a relief, but a partial relief. Chapter 8 contains revelations of events which will occur 400 years after Daniel with Antiochus. And we'll get more of a look, again, a progressive revelation of who the Antichrist is, but that's for next time. Now, can you see the hand of God? I want to finish on a good note. Because throughout the history of Israel, from Bible times until today, the enemies of Israel have common characteristics. First of all, they're more than us. I was just reading about, King Asa in Judah, who had to face 1 million Ethiopians. And when he trusted God, God took care of him. They were more numerous than Israel, just like they are today. The enemies were often better equipped, and they were cruel and oppressive. And they formed alliances to destroy Israel like it is today. But God always stood for Israel. And he opposed these enemies. We know the Abrahamic covenant, where God says in Genesis 12:3, if you even take Israel lightly, not curse like say a bad word about them, but no, even treat them as unimportant, that's the Hebrew, then he must destroy. So those who persecute Israel. So he is the one who has always protected, delivered, and given victory to Israel. Israel is a miracle of history that we're witnessing today. And her history is about to reach its highest point ever. And today, more than any other generation before, we have this great privilege of witnessing these events in our lifetime and seeing the hand of God working in this world. Maybe in the Q&A time, I can read you what I posted on Facebook recently about the Israeli airstrikes on Iran and how incredibly miraculous they were. So I hope you were blessed by this teaching. It was a deep one, a dense one, one you got to chew on. You got steak tonight. And if you want to be notified when the next video is uploaded to YouTube, you can subscribe. If you think of putting a thumb up, then it will increase our visibility, but we trust God for our visibility. And until the next time, I will say, Shalom, Shalom.
הללו את אדוני כל גויים.